bhavatu sahano bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvina aditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. O dearly beloved, make it so. So namaste and welcome to our Wednesday evening class on the book Realizing God. We're reading and discussing this book of Swami Prabhavananda's, a compilation of his talks from the 1930s to the 1970s by his loving and devoted disciple Edith Tipple or Nalini. So our beloved reader Haima will tell us where we are, and unless there's some conversation that someone wants to have before we begin, she'll start reading. Anything at all from anyone? All right, dears, please go ahead.
Okay, Brother Shankara. Good evening, everyone, and namaste. We are on page 110 of Realizing God book. And on the top of the page, I will start from 110, top of the page. Thus, every creature from the atom or the worm that crawls under our feet to the highest manifestation that we find in Christ or Krishna, in Buddha or Ramakrishna, each one will unfold that same divinity. The only difference between an avatara or a Christ, a son of God, and you and me is not in kind, but in degree of manifestation. This reminds me of an incident. Swami Turiyananda was walking on the streets of New York with a disciple. With great force and in a loud voice, he said, Gurudas, come out like a lion from this cage of the bondage of ignorance. The meaning of resurrection, as Plato pointed out, is that we rise from being buried in ignorance. Every one of us has to be resurrected by rising from ignorance, by transcending the different sheets of ignorance, the mind, body, sense organs, ego. When we transcend all these, then there is resurrection. Then there is the identity of self with Brahman. Sri Krishna pointed out to his disciple Arjuna, you cannot see me and my total reality in my universal form, but I shall give you divine sight. Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, suppose a man has faith but does not struggle hard enough. His mind...
Son, I'm in class. I can't talk right now. I'll call you back. Sorry.
No problem, Brother Shankara. Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, suppose a man has faith but does not struggle hard enough. His mind wanders away from the practice of yoga and he fails to reach that perfection. What will become of him then? There are always some, who practice yoga, meditation, and then fall away from that and become worldly. When a man goes astray from the path, He had missed both lives, the worldly and the spiritual. He has no support anywhere. Is he not lost as a broken cloud is lost in the sky? This is the doubt that troubles me, Krishna, and only you can altogether remove it from my mind. Sri Krishna says, no, my son, the man is not lost, either in this world or the next. No one who seeks Brahman ever comes to an evil end. Even if you have struggled a little, you are not lost. Even if a man falls away from the practice of yoga, he will still win the heaven of the doers of good deeds and dwell there many long years. After that, he will be reborn into the home of pure and prosperous parents. He may even be born into a family of liberated, illumined yogis, but such a birth in this world is more difficult to obtain. He can regain his spiritual discernment, which he acquired in his former life. And so he will strive harder than ever for perfection. Because of his practices in the previous life, he will be driven on toward union with Brahman, even in spite of himself. For the man who has once asked the way to Brahman goes further than any mere fulfiller of the Vedas. By struggling hard, cleansing himself of all impurities, the yogi will move gradually toward perfection through many births and reach the highest goal at last.
Okay, let's
Sure.
pause a moment
Yes.
and consider this huge promise.
Yes.
Arjuna says, what happens if you fall away from the path? Aren't you lost? And in one of the few instances in the Gita where this happens, Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna as my son. Know my son. And then he proceeds to explain to him what will really happen. Now, one of the things that is true of the present moment is that Sri Ramakrishna took human form in order to short circuit this need for many lives to achieve perfection and liberation. So Sri Ramakrishna extends his hand and says, take my hand and I will pull you through. I will show you the way to liberation, not over many lives, but within this lifetime. This has been told to me, repeated to me, promised to me by the great Swamis with whom I've studied. Swami Prabhavananda, Swami Swahananda, and so on. So this is the thing for us to keep in mind. Sri Krishna, 5,000 years ago approximately, made this promise from his perspective. We now have a new perspective offered to us by Sri Ramakrishna. And that's what will be talked about this coming Sunday. What that perspective of Sri Ramakrishna's is, as written about by Swami Vivekananda. So before we read on, anything else from anyone? Any comment from your own wisdom or experience? Any concern or question about what's been read or said? All right, dears, let's read on.
What is meant by evolution? It is like the illustration of a reservoir with a dam. In order to flood the field, you just cut the dam and the water flows in. Similarly, there is divinity, God, within each one of us, but there is the dam of ignorance. Remove that, and your life is flooded with joy and freedom. Then you reach your immortality. Reincarnation is nothing but the chance to unfold divinity. There is no such a thing as a sinner forever and ever.
Mhm.
Accumulated dirt and dust are not your nature. They will be washed away. Why are we not born with knowledge? Why this ignorance, this Maya? Nobody can answer that question. It is said to be a statement of fact. But what Maya is beautifully illustrated by a story as told by Swami Vivekananda. Narada once said to Krishna, Lord, show me Maya. A few days passed and Krishna asked Narada to make a trip with him to the desert. After walking for several miles, Krishna said, Narada, I'm thirsty. Can you fetch some water for me? I will go at once, sir. So Narada went and a little distance found a village. He entered the village and knocked at a door, which was opened by a most beautiful young girl. At the sight of her, he immediately forgot that his master was waiting for water. He forgot everything and began to talk with the girl. All that day he did not return to his master. The next day he was still at the house talking to the girl. That talk ripened into love. He asked the father for the daughter and they were married, lived there and had children. Thus 12 years passed. The father died and Narada inherited his property. He lived, as it seemed to him, a very happy life with his wife and children, his field and his cattle, and so forth. Then one night the river rose until it overflowed its banks and flooded the whole village. Houses fell. Men and animals were swept away and drowned. Everything was floating in the rush of the stream. Narada had to escape. With one hand he held his wife and with the other two of his children. With another child on his shoulders, he tried to ford this tremendous flood. After a few steps, he found the current was too strong and the child on his shoulders fell and was borne away. A cry of despair came from Narada. In trying to save the child, he lost his grasp upon one of the others, and it also was lost. At last, his wife, whom he clasped with all his might, was borne away by the current, and he was thrown onto the bank, weeping and wailing bitterly. Behind him came a gentle voice. My child, where is the water? You went to fetch a pitcher of water, and I'm waiting for you. You were gone for a good half hour. Half an hour, Narada exclaimed. 12 whole years had passed through his mind, and all these scenes had happened in half an hour. This is Maya. Any comments, Brother Shankara? Wonderful.
Oh, just that time is a very relative thing, and we experience it very differently than every other human being, even though we have clocks to keep the time. Our own personal experience of the time is very different. And without the clocks, we could conceivably experience 12 years in half an hour. There's a wonderful episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation in which Picard is thrown into such a situation. I won't go into the details, but it is this business of, for him, as he's experiencing it, many years go by on the spaceship from which he was taken to experience this, many years going by. Only a short time had passed. So for Sri Krishna, half an hour had passed. For Narada, 12 years had passed. And all of this life experience had passed. Relative. Maya is a relative reality, not an absolute reality. And so it cannot be relied upon. We must go deeper to find that which can be relied upon. We must go to where there is timelessness, where instead of time, there is in change, there is eternity and changelessness. And this is the point of spiritual practice, to take us away from the relative and toward and finally merging with the absolute, which is the nature of the Atma. So this is a wonderful illustration by Swami Vivekananda of the nature of Maya. And as was pointed out before the story, we cannot ask why Maya exists. Maya exists, as Swami Prabhavananda says, because it can. There's no other explanation and no other question can be asked. Why does Maya exist alongside Brahman, the absolute and the relative? Why does the relative exist? Because it can. And so, anything else from anyone about anything that was read or has been said? Anything else from anyone?
I just think of Maya as Shakti. You know, I kind of think of it a little different than most people. Is I think we're already here and now in the presence of the Ishta or the avatar, and that Shakti is radiating from that center, and we're standing still, but the flow of Shakti past us makes us think that we're moving in time. So I think Einstein had it right when he said, you know, when will the station reach the train? It's the train's not moving. The station is. And I think it's that flow of Shakti past us radiating outward, like we're literally going backwards in time from the avatar, or but what it seems like. But really we're sitting still and Shakti is flowing past us is the way I perceive it.
Wonderfully said, wonderfully articulated. This is one way of looking at it. Yes, indeed.
I'm also thinking, Brother Shankara, this may be a test from the divine to our checking our sense pleasures, the lust, gold, woman. He was testing Narada. It seems like Lord was testing Narada, how his sense pleasures are in control or not. It wasn't. It wasn't in control. We could see that. He was
Clearly.
lured by the woman, the young, pretty girl, beautiful young girl.
Well, I think it's interesting that they all succumbed to water. They all drowned. And he was asking, well, where's the water?
Right.
So interesting.
Is it in Karma Yoga where Vivekananda talks about the eddy, about the attachment is like an eddy and you have to get out to the outer? Isn't that what we talked about last week? I think
actually, I believe that's in Raja Yoga, and he speaks about the eddies or whirlpools as the vritti, and we have to put an end to the vritti in our mind stuff This is the point of spiritual practice, especially directed, so directed in Raja Yoga by the limbs of yoga, the way Raja Yoga is practiced, to put a stop to the motion of Maya or Shakti in the mind stuff. No more mental modifications. When the mental modifications or vrittis or whirlpools or eddies stop, then, as Vivekananda says, your universe disappears. Not the universe we share, not the capital U universe, but your universe comes to a stop. And this is the point and the reason and the aim of Raja Yoga, to bring your universe to a stop. And when it does, when it stops, it's replaced in your awareness by something higher. And this is called samadhi. We won't go into all of that now, but that's what you're remembering, dear. As you spoke of the eddies, this is as it's recalled from here. And thank you. Anything else from anyone? Is there something that I'm not remembering in Karma Yoga, dear, that you remember specifically?
Don't think. Yeah. I
I
don't.
think Jaime's in my other,
Yeah, we're in Boulder group.
in the older group, and seems like we talked about that last week. Yeah. How about, being attached, attached to the
definitely
eddy,
being
and
attached.
the only way that you can get out is by letting loose. The only
Yes,
way you get spun out. Yeah.
yes. All right, dear. Well, you're certainly right about the attachment.
Was it? Okay, thanks. I read a lot of different things, so things pop up. So thank
Sure,
you.
of course. Yeah, we all do. And it takes a while to, and at least there's a possibility of getting it straight. But not that it's not necessarily so. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please move on.
We have been passing through many lives in ignorance. When we wake up, time will not exist. We will realize that we are always this. All the time we were free, blissful, immortal. In the Upanishads, we find the path of return and the path of non-return. The path of return means reincarnation. When one is dying, a part of the mind is already in another world. The illustration is given of a leech moving. The leech does not give up what it is leaving without catching hold of something else first. It catches hold, then gives up, catches hold, gives up, like that. So a part of our consciousness is already in the next life. Then again, we're not born immediately as human beings, but there are certain karmas, good as well as bad, which have effects in the afterlife, but do not create any effect in this life. After the exhaustion of the effects of these deeds, we are thrown back into this world and given another chance. This is the path of return. Now, in the path of non-return, you do not have to come back. That is the ideal. The aim of life is to travel the path of non-return. In the Aitareya Upanishad, we read of what nature is this self. Is he the self by which we see form, hear sound, smell odor, speak words, and taste the sweet or the bitter? Is he the heart and the mind by which we perceive, comment, discriminate, Know, think, remember, will, feel, desire, breathe, love, and perform other like acts. Nay, these are but adjuncts of the self, who is pure consciousness. And this self, who is pure consciousness, is Brahman. He is God, all gods, the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, ether. All beings, great or small, born of eggs, born from the womb, born from the heat, born from soil, horses, cows, men, elephants, birds, everything that breathes, the beings that walk and the beings that walk not. The reality behind all these is Brahman, who is pure consciousness. It is while living on earth, not after death, that we have to attain immortality, which is beyond time and space. You have to realize the Atman. How can that be realized? When the divine sight opens. The question remains how? Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In every scripture, you hear of this condition, purity of heart. What does that mean? To be freed from attachment and aversion and the clinging to this surface life. To go beyond good and evil. Does that mean we retire from the world and go to a cave of the Himalayas or the Gobi Desert? No, 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 no. Wherever you go, you take your mind and your character. There is the story of a king and a holy man. The holy man asked the king to follow him, and the king said, look, dear sir, if I go to the forest with you, I shall build a kingdom there. It is in the mind. So what is the way? The idea is to move on amongst the objects of senses, but neither to be attached to them nor have aversion to them. When the senses thus become purified, the heart becomes purified. What then is the nature of that person? There is constant recollectedness of God. And when there comes that constant recollectedness of God, the truth becomes revealed, all bonds are loosened, and he attains to freedom. When I asked my master about samadhi, he pointed out, you know what? When samadhi happens, this is what happens. And then he quoted this verse from the Upanishads. The knots of ignorance of the heart become loosened. All doubts cease to exist. The effects of all deeds are wiped out by him who has known that reality. This has to be attained here and now. I have seen such souls, complete freedom, oneness with Brahman. Any comments, Brother Shankara, or you want me to move on?
Well, just for us to take him very seriously. He has known such beings.
Yes.
And of course, we have the opportunity to know them also. They may no longer be embodied, but that doesn't mean we can't know them. Grace will allow us to know any of the saints that have ever existed, the saints or the avatars, the incarnations. When Jesus says, whenever two or more of you are gathered in my name, I shall come among you and give you what you want. He didn't mean some other day than this one. So it's very important for us to remember that these are not promises for another time, another place, Therefore, right now, right this moment, and the realization that we're seeking is the gift that can be given to us by the incarnation, by the highly evolved saint. By a mere touch, a mere glance, they can awaken our spiritual nature, the so-called Kundalini. So none of this is for some other time, some other place. You may allow it to be that way. You may rock along without grasping the truth of its immediacy. And that's fine. There's no one's saying that you're bad and wrong for doing it. It's simply, in the long run, futile. It won't lead you to anything more than another lifetime. So any other comments or questions from anyone? All right, dear, please go on.
Exactly what is the spiritual ideal? It is what we call moksha, liberation from reincarnation. Often people who believe in reincarnation think it's wonderful. But we believe it means just so many chances given to realize that same reality, that is, none will be lost. And as long as we have this human body, it is our first duty to realize the truth in this very life. Otherwise, life is in vain. There is one important philosophical problem. All your efforts in life, all your struggles for spiritual experience are finite. How can your finite struggles give you that which is infinite? In Shankara's commentary on the Brahma Sutras, we find our ignorance is finite, and finite struggles can remove it. Just as the shining sun is covered by clouds, and a burst of wind comes and takes away the clouds. The sun then is shining. What then is that state of experience? I shall quote to you a Christian mystic, St. John of the Cross. Then I bowed my head, O my beloved, forgot myself, and all else ceased. Myself I shed. Forgotten were the lilies folded in the field. That is, Christ considered the lilies of the field, how they grow. That is the footnote there. That is, the whole universe disappeared from before him. According to Sri Ramakrishna, there are different classes of people. Some are ever free souls, but of course these are very rare. They come for the good of mankind. To others, sudden illumination can come. You are not expecting it or thinking of God, but you have struggled for Him. And sudden illumination comes. Suddenly you become perfect. The reason is that you must have done something in the past. I'll tell you an incident in the life of my master. There was an American businessman who was very busy and never thought of God, but suddenly he had a dream, go to India. Near Calcutta, there is a monastery, and there is one who is known as Maharaj. Go to him. So he came. Tantine, Josephine MacLeod, went to Maharaj and told him about this businessman, but Maharaj paid no attention. Then Swami Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj, another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, came and begged him because the man had come from such a long distance and only wanted to see him once. He paid no attention. The rest of the story I heard from Tantine. It is not in any book. The man went by boat to Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna had lived. As he was coming back and was about to land, Maharaj suddenly appeared on the bank. As soon as he appeared, the man fell dead. You see, Maharaj knew that this man was his disciple in another life, and this was his last birth, that the moment he saw him, he would die and attain liberation. But Maharaj was clever. If he died on the monastery grounds, there would have been political implications. The man died on the river Ganges, and no issues were raised. This is called Videha Mukti, the realization of God at the moment of death. Many we have known in this country, not only in India, have realized God at the moment of death. Though they apparently became unconscious, they were chanting their mantra. There was one man in Switzerland, my disciple, who was uttering his mantra loudly, though he was unconscious. They thought he was Irish. I will read out to you my favorite letter of Swamiji. Day and night, think of God, and as far as possible, think of nothing else. The daily necessary thoughts will all be thought through God. Eat to Him, drink to Him, sleep to Him, see Him in all. Talk of God to others. That is most beneficial. When the whole soul pours in a continuous current to God, when there is no time to seek money or name or fame, no time to think of anything but God, then will come into your heart the wonderful infinite bliss of love. All desires are but beads of glass. True love of God increases every moment and is ever new. It is to be known by feeling it, and love is the easiest of disciplines. It waits for no logic. It is natural. We need no demonstrations, no proof. Reasoning is limiting something by our own mind. We throw a net and catch something and then say we have demonstrated it. But never, never can we catch God in a net. In conclusion, I wish to read out to you from the Bhagavad Gita what Sri Krishna says, and which is a great comfort to all of us. Here it is. Though a man be soiled with the sins of a lifetime, let him but love me, rightly resolved in utter devotion. I see no sinner. In this connection, my master said to me, sin? Where is sin in God's eye? Heaps of so-called sin are like cotton. If the eyes of the Lord fall, they are all turned to ashes. To continue with Sri Krishna, so let him but love me, rightly resolved in utter devotion. I see no sinner. That man is holy. Holiness soon shall refashion his nature to peace eternal. O son of Kunti, of this be certain, the man that loves me, he shall not perish. That's the end of the topic that we were reading, which is called Reincarnation and Immortality, Brother Shankara. Any comments, any knowledge from you elaborating?
Well, what can be added to what's been said?
Exactly. Very reassuring, Brother Shankara.
Very
Very
reassuring.
reassuring.
And this is what it's meant to be.
That's right.
The Swami is ever anxious that we not be overcome by our fears and doubts. So it keeps repeating these promises, these great promises by the great teachers. What does Christ say? Seek ye first the kingdom of God. In other words, put that first. Make that your first priority. Do whatever else you must to sustain yourself and do your duties. But first priority, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. Now notice there's no qualification. Your material needs will be met. Your spiritual needs will be met as follows. All knowledge and all wisdom. You will receive all knowledge and all wisdom. Nothing that was hidden will not be revealed. Nothing that was hidden will not be revealed. So this is Christ's very succinct way of saying these things. It's one of the things that the Swami doesn't mention but could have. He quotes from Christ from time to time. So let's remember the promises and accept the invitation of the great teachers. And they will guide us to samadhi. They will guide us to this transcendental knowledge that banishes all doubts and fears. Anything else from anyone?
I have one comment, Brother Shankara. Here, Swami says, eat to him, drink to him, sleep to him, see him in all. I agree. Talk to God to others. I think if we talk to the wrong people who are not on the same page as we are, they'll throw us out completely. If I talk to someone here in my holy company, yes, they understand it because we have been reading these scriptures, understanding the meaning of God, self-realization. But if I talk to God to other people, I'm sure Swami meant people who are holy company, probably. I'm assuming.
No, he doesn't do.
He
He
doesn't.
means talk to everyone, but you have to learn how to shape how you say it.
Okay.
They're listening so that they're able to hear you. You don't tell them the highest truths.
Mm-hmm.
You tell them the truths that will be useful to them.
Okay.
If they speak of being constantly distracted and therefore not as efficient as they could be, you could tell them, well, there are exercises you can do to learn how to concentrate. If you learn how to concentrate, you'll become more efficient and more effective. This is a way of talking about God.
Thank you.
And so no one is left out. No one is an exception to the ability to be awakened. And who knows what words at what time will be the spark that ignites that tiny fire within. And suddenly they say, oh, I feel a warmth from something I've never felt before. So, we can speak to everyone of God. You can just say to people, as is said from here very often to people, may you be well and in bright spirits.
Right.
The only way to really be well and in bright spirits and sustain that is to be in a state of God consciousness. That's the only thing that will enable us. So there's many ways to talk to people about God without ever saying the word.
Thank you,
Thank you for bringing that up, Ivan. That's a very important point. we needn't shy away from anything. We may not seek their company because they will, their conversation will be filled with things that are not congenial to us. So we may not shun their company, but simply not seek it or make it easy, make ourselves easily available to them.
One thing, Brother Shankara, I have observed, like if, like Haimaji was talking about, if a person is not at the same level of consciousness, and then the conversation becomes kind of difficult to talk to them on spirituality, or talking to them about, move away from the five senses, they will talk about God for sure, but they're talking about God is just to pray the God without even realizing what they are praying. Sometime at least in my opinion, I have felt, I need to back down and not to talk more about that this is illusion, this is Maya. And
no, you're absolutely right. We don't say those things to people because they have no footing,
No idea.
from which to understand them. So we speak to them, as I say, a communicator cannot blame their audience for not understanding. It's up to us to speak to their listening, to speak to them about what they will understand and relate to. So you're absolutely right. You can't talk to them about Maya or illusion or any of that. Not yet.
I like that, not yet. Yep, absolutely.
True.
I have quite a challenge. I live out here in South Dakota. So, and I teach yoga. So I have to be very gentle with what yoga involves. And I have been working with senior citizens here in South Dakota. And gradually, through the movement and talking about the importance of it and all that, you can start to really talk about the philosophy more. And I always say this is part of what yoga is. It's more than just moving. It's more than asanas. It's a way of life. And it's been really a fascinating trip. It's really taught me a lot about being subtle.
Yes.
Because I want them to be there. I don't want to alienate them.
Of course. So
yeah.
talk to them
And
about poise and grace and centeredness. Poise and grace and centeredness. The asanas give them.
And we do a little meditation, and it's all to help the quality of their life.
Yes. And there are very few of them that you will be able to say, this is just part of something called Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And then they will awaken to that and want to read the sutras and want some explanation. Now the door is beginning to open. And so what you're doing in giving them the gift of yoga, Hatha Yoga, is this poise and grace and centeredness, something that most of them have never experienced in their body in their whole lives. They may have learned ballroom dancing, which gives a little gesture toward it, but certainly not in the concentrated way that you're teaching them. So congratulations. And, Jai, you for doing this for them. It's a great gift. And given that, many of them are going to go on into further lifetimes, every little bit of wisdom that we learn flowers and matures as we go on in our lifetimes. The great grace right now is that for those who are awake and listening, we hear the promise of a Sri Ramakrishna that you do not have to live many more lifetimes. This can be the end of your lifetime. You can experience moksha, chanting your mantra loudly, as was given in that example, and depart into immortality. That's part of the chant. Lead us from darkness, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. And that's what we ask the avatar, the incarnation, to do. Lead us from death to immortality and light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. How much time do we have left?
We have about 9 minutes, Brother Shankara.
Oh.
We can do some, at least a page and a half or something.
Yes, yes.
Next
Anything
topic
else?
is
Anything
very
else? I'm
yes.
sorry. Wait a minute.
Next topic is peace and holiness. We all need that.
Okay. Anything else from anyone before we move on? Okay, read to us about peace and holiness.
Okay, peace and holiness. There is a desire in everyone's heart to find peace, but very few know how and where to find that peace. The ideal of holiness may even seem very dull and uninteresting to many, but if we understand what holiness really means, we shall find that in being holy alone can we find peace. We have lost our kingdom. There is a story about a king who lost his memory and was trying to find out where the king of his kingdom was. He went to everybody asking, "Where is the king?" Nobody would answer. Then at long last, he went to his prime minister, who said, "You are the king." In the same way, we have lost the kingdom of self and we have to regain it. In the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that the incarnation of God is urging Arjuna, the general, to find and not to fight and not to yield. Here is the true meaning. Where is this battle going on? In Dharmakshetra, the field of holiness, and Kurukshetra, the field of battle. In this field of holiness, which is also the field of battle, each one of us has to fight. There are two forces within each of us. The forces of evil, as it were, are greater in number, but the general, the charioteer, the Lord himself is guiding from within. The forces of good, though small in number, eventually will win out. To give a modern example, Freud says that there is a conflict in us between two wills, the will to live and the will to die. Strangely enough, he calls the will to die the will to nirvana. And he points out that nobody can get rid of this will to die, but everyone can ultimately overcome the will to live. The Hindu standpoint is that the surface current of a river goes in one direction and that there is an undercurrent going in the other. The surface current goes toward enjoying life, toward pleasure, and the undercurrent moves towards realizing God, freedom, peace. Buddha calls the surface current the thirst for life. Jesus says the love for this life can be overcome. Buddha calls the surface current the thirst for life. Jesus says the love for this life can be overcome. but nobody can overcome the undercurrent that moves towards God. In some life or another, Hindus believe each individual will have to face that fight, that battlefield of life in this field of holiness, and will have to overcome the evil forces and move toward the light, towards God, and attain peace. No one will be lost. St. Paul said, the whole creation has been groaning in travail together until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait for adoption as sons. Even though he had the vision of Christ, he was still groaning in suffering until he says, we are adopted as sons of God. In this connection, the great Christian mystic Angelus Silesius, did I say it right, Brother Shankara? Angelus Silesius, I think. Angelus Silesius, is that the correct name? I pronounced it right?
Yes.
Okay. Angelus Silesius said, Christ may be born 1,000 times in Bethlehem, but until he is born anew in your own heart, you remain forlorn. What to speak of St. Paul or any Christian mystic? Greater than all these, Jesus himself said, "Ye shall have tribulations in the world." Then he added in deeply comforting assurance to troubled hearts, "But be of good cheer. I have overcome this world." And that is the point. You have to overcome this world.
Sorry, I can't talk now. I'm in class.
You have to overcome this world. A nation wants to conquer another nation. My ideal, and it must be your ideal and everyone's ideal, is not to conquer one nation or another, but to conquer this whole world. Think of that. That is my ambition, to overcome this whole world. There have been many nations that have had big empires. The Roman Empire, where has that gone? The English Empire, where is it today? But we have to conquer the whole world. Where is the world? In our mind. So we have to conquer that mind. Then we are free in this world everywhere. Any comments? This is
That's
a
an important point.
beautiful. Yes.
That the world does not exist out there. The world exists in our mind. And if we wish to change how we are in the world, we have to change the nature of our mind, of our awareness. That's the only place that any change will be of any avail. So let us remark on that the world does not exist outside of us. What exists outside of us? Both the scientists and sages like Vasishta tell us the only thing that exists outside of us is vibration. These incredible spacesuits of ours take that vibration and through the actions of our mind, change it into the world we experience. Now those vibrations are low vibrations and high vibrations. Avidyamaya, Vidyamaya. When we seize on the higher vibrations, as Patanjali tells us to do in the Yoga Sutras, replace the lower samskaras with the higher samskaras. Slowly and slowly, our mind changes and our heart can reside in peace and holiness. So we'll leave it there for tonight.
Yes, it's a time, Brother Shankara. Time is over.
If if anyone else has anything they'd like to add, please do take a moment, and whatever you'd like to say, we'd love to hear. All right. So until Saturday, we'll go ahead with our Thursday and Friday. And then on Sunday, I'll speak on overcoming your doubts and fears. That's the topic for this Sunday. So, Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we be secure in the knowledge that the Mother, Father, Divine Being introduced in the prayer that opens each of these sessions holds us securely in their loving and protective embrace. So may you all be well and in bright spirits until the next time we meet. Good night, all.
Okay, thank you, brother.